Did you know that the welfare system is on the brink of a major overhaul? What if these cuts could actually push more people out of work instead of helping them? The time to act is now. Join the conversation and demand a fairer approach to welfare reform. In the discourse surrounding welfare reform, a narrative emerges that reveals a complex interplay of socioeconomic factors, historical precedents, and the voices of diverse stakeholders. As the current government grapples with a welfare system perceived as broken, the Labour Party's internal debate echoes the historical tension seen during the late 20th century, notably during Margaret Thatcher's administration. While the government emphasizes the urgent need to address the rising health-related benefits expenditure, claiming economic necessity, the reality appears far more nuanced. Particularly for the marginalized populations most affected by these cuts. Beginning with the present context, officials assert that the increasing cost of health-related benefits, which soared from £28 billion before the pandemic to a staggering £52 billion in the current financial climate, necessitates radical reform. Yet, behind this claim lies a more troubling implication, as the Office for Budget Responsibility Projects further increases to £70 billion by the decade's end. One must question whether these cuts truly alleviate financial strain or simply push more vulnerable individuals into the margins of society. Has the government considered the ramifications of decimating support structures that are crucial for the very individuals who can least afford to lose them? This pattern recalls another tumultuous era when employment-related reforms led to an explosion of incapacity claims, an outcome seemingly at odds with the government's aims. The so-called hard boundary of welfare support often leads individuals to label themselves as completely unfit for work due to a system that fails to recognize the spectrum of capability and need. In a society striving for progress, what does it say about us if we leave those battling mental health challenges, particularly with no transitional support, back into the workforce? Experts, such as DWP advisor Professor Paul Gregg, echo this concern, stressing that the welfare system once effectively bridged the gap between part-time work and partial benefits. The history of the welfare state, Gregg notes, shows that we are most successful when we provide flexibility and support to those navigating their own challenges. Yet, as the government seeks to cut billions from welfare allocations, one must ponder whether such a strategy genuinely fosters job readiness or merely exacerbates the cycle of poverty and dependency. Marginalized stakeholders whisper the truth behind bureaucratic metrics, revealing staggering statistics that suggest a dramatic rise in mental illness claims is not simply a matter of increasing health issues. From 2002 to 2024, claimants for mental health conditions grew from 360,000 to over 1 million, ostensibly correlating with structural failures in the welfare apparatus rather than an outright epidemic of illness. Paradoxically, could the government's blunt instrument of reform, cutting welfare, actually drive more individuals into the shadows of incapacity, ultimately resulting in higher costs in the long run? A significant historical parallel can be drawn to the early 2000s when similar welfare reforms under New Labour sought to aggressively combat rising unemployment through targeted support programs. In that instance, a robust resurgence occurred, returning many to the workforce. Today, as employers face pressure from rising national insurance costs and a slow economy, they may hesitate to engage in the proactive measures needed to support their workforce in the same way, with what's at stake, including the futures of today's youth. The questions loom large. Will the economy truly benefit from slashing welfare, or will we witness a tragic fall into deeper despair for those struggling with illness? And as public sentiment swells against the backdrop of impending budget cuts, can we afford to ignore the voices pleading for a more empathetic and comprehensive approach to welfare reform? As this contentious dialogue unfolds, one thing remains clear: the meticulously crafted welfare framework is on the precipice of change, with rippling effects yet to fully manifest. In my view, the current approach of the government to welfare reform is deeply troubling. It is striking that rather than addressing the systemic injustices faced by marginalized communities, the focus remains on cutting benefits that many rely on for basic survival. The assumption that a mere job can cure complex health issues ignores the realities of mental illness, which has surged in recent years, exacerbated by socioeconomic vulnerabilities. As we question the very structure of welfare, one must ask, in a society that claims to prioritize well-being, why are the most vulnerable being sacrificed on the altar of fiscal austerity? Subscribit y Dale like para mantenert informado.